Hi everyone, my name is Apuraj Garakapati. Welcome to my YouTube channel Amazing Abhay.
I command time to stand still!
Master the timeline.
Later, inside a sorcery shop, Logan was using the communication line and suddenly shouted from the back of the room that it would be at least 10 tons of gold per year, which instantly made everyone nearby turn their heads toward him. He froze mid-sentence, staring straight at the door, then asked the person on the other end if they were serious. That person was Hammer, who calmly confirmed the information. Hammer explained that according to the miners, there was a very high chance the gold nuggets were located in a deeper layer of the hill. Logan stared at the communication orb like a complete madman, clenching his teeth and fists so hard they trembled. Even with a rough estimate, 10 tons of gold translated into around 100 million gold coins. To him, this was the ultimate jackpot, the biggest lottery win he could ever imagine. Hammer added that the mining costs were no joke and asked Logan if he could actually afford it, since just starting the operation would cost about 5 million gold. Logan assured Hammer that he already had everything he needed. He told him to wait and said he would gather all the money and workers as fast as possible. Hammer didn't look too worried and simply asked Logan to go easy on the workers. Later that night, in the middle of the city, Logan walked through the streets while thinking about how the initial investment for the mine would be around 5 million gold. If he kept selling as he was earning roughly 4.5 million gold per month. Come to think of it, even if he only sold for 2 months, he would still have money left over since he still had about 700 boxes of medicine and stock. He started thinking about going back home to get more merchandise and beginning the mental development stuff, but something suddenly caught his attention and snapped him out of his trance. Logan looked toward a shop and sensed that someone was inside. In an instant, he rushed over, thinking it might be robbers. He violently kicked the door open, sending it slamming into the wall, and began searching the place from top to bottom. But the room looked completely empty. Logan drew his sword, wondering if the culprits had somehow vanished, then reminded himself there was only one door. They had to still be inside. Just as that thought crossed his mind, a shadow zipped past him. He realized it too late and slashed at the cloaked figure, but missed. He shouted, demanding to know who was there. When he turned around, no one was in sight. He stood still with his sword pointed at nothing, his heart pounding. Impossible, he thought. He was absolutely sure he had felt someone there. Then that feeling came again. He looked up, guessing the thief might be on the roof. Without hesitating, he leaped upward, aiming at that cloaked figure. He raised his sword, ready to stab, but the culprit moved at the last second. Logan faced the figure on the rooftop, sword in hand. He demanded to know the man's identity, but got no answer. Instead, the figure simply vanished without leaving a trace. Logan was completely stunned by what had just happened. He kept thinking about how there was no sign of any presence, even though the guy had been right in front of him moments ago. He looked down at his own hand and realized he was holding a piece of the man's cloak. He stared at it, wondering what the hell had just happened. The next morning, Logan told Philip about the incident, and together they concluded that an aura-using thief had infiltrated their shop. Logan said he was only speculating, but that the intruder was at least an advanced force user. That was a term used for people even more powerful than high-rank knights. He added that it wasn't just a feeling. That guy wasn't merely high rank. He was on a whole different level. Philip was shocked that someone who could use aura was committing petty theft. Aura was enough to turn even a slave into a noble, so he couldn't understand why someone like that would be running around stealing. He asked what the man had taken. Logan replied that it was exactly what Philip was thinking. He had stolen only 2 pills of the medicine. Emporic, just that. Hearing this, Logan concluded that if he only stole 2 pills, it wasn't for money. He had taken them to use himself. Philip then asked if there were also impotent people among aura users. That's when it clicked for Logan, and he agreed. Logan asked if there were any names of aura users on the informant's list, but Philip said there weren't. The informant had asked for an extra fee for that information since it was top secret, and Philip had refused. But after thinking about it again, Philip said maybe there was one person who came to mind. An aura user in the capital who had no descendants. A muscular, well-dressed noble with blonde hair and a beard was walking down the street with his wife, watching some children play. His face looked gentle, and his light blue eyes were filled with longing as he stared at them. He was startled when his wife asked what he was looking at. He turned and told her he was just admiring the scenery outside, sweating nervously. She clearly didn't buy that lame excuse and asked if he was staring at the children again. He tried to convince her he was only enjoying the view and wasn't thinking about anything silly. Then he hugged his wife and said they should go home. She kind of ignored that and instead told him she was very happy to have met him, asking if he knew that. The man looked at her with happiness in his eyes and a small smile, tugging at his mustache. He hugged her even tighter and said he felt the same. This man was Felix Esperanza, the kingdom's greatest swordsman. It turned out that the deep sadness and regret in his heart started with an injustice he suffered when he was young. While fighting for the country, he had been wounded right between the legs. At the time, it was just considered a wound of honor for a knight who fell in battle, and since he was young, he didn't think much of it. But later in life, Felix kept wondering what the point was of holding the title of duke, and being known as the strongest in the nation, if he had no son to succeed him. To him, it all felt meaningless. A memory from the past appeared, showing Felix explaining his situation to his wife. She was far more understanding than he expected, so much so that he was shocked. She'd acknowledged that he must have suffered a lot, and asked with tears in her eyes if he was okay with it, saying she wanted to stay by his side and serve him. Seeing that, Felix wondered if there was any way he could ever repay the immense love he had received. Later, Felix was seen strolling through a path in the castle gardens with one of his servants. The servant warned him that the family meeting was about to begin and asked if he was sure he didn't need to hurry. Felix replied that arriving early was pointless anyway, since the only thing that would happen was everyone pressuring him to produce an heir. The servant hesitated, then carefully mentioned that a very effective medicine had recently started circulating in the capital. Hearing that, Felix asked sarcastically if that was really true. The servant went on, saying that apparently the medicine even cured physical injuries, but Felix still didn't seem interested. The servant insisted, explaining that he knew Felix didn't believe in these things, but there were many reports of people who had amazing results. Hearing this, Felix lowered his head, ashamed to admit to himself that he had already tried the medicine, and on top of that, he had stolen it. Even though his wife's tears still weighed on him, he couldn't believe he had stooped so low as theft, a disgrace to the discipline he had always upheld. Worse, after taking the medicine, absolutely nothing had happened, so he told Louise, his servant, not to believe everything he heard. He began convincing himself that he was right, that the story about the medicine working was just a fake rumor, and that there was no way it could fix something, even Aura couldn't. He thought he should have given up already. At the gates of the estate, Logan was talking to a guard who told him he couldn't let him meet Felix without an appointment. Logan calmly asked the guard to simply tell Felix his name, saying he was sure Felix would want to meet him as soon as he knew who was asking. Earlier, Logan and Philip had talked about this, and Philip had been shocked, asking if Logan was really planning to visit the Duke in person. Logan had nodded, and Philip started teasing him, asking if he was going to chase down the strongest man in the kingdom, just to ask whether he stole something, or if he was impotent. Philip freaked out and asked if that was seriously Logan's plan, but Logan calmly asked if Philip was imitating him. Philip told him he should act like nothing had happened, otherwise he'd get into trouble for no reason, warning that if things went south, they were screwed. Sitting in a chair in a hallway, Logan thought Philip wasn't wrong, but if the guy from yesterday really was the Sword Duke, he couldn't let this opportunity slip away. A butler came out of a room, opened a beautifully carved wooden door, and told Logan to enter. Inside, Felix was waiting by the window. As Logan approached the Sword Duke, he thought this was his chance to build a positive connection with one of the strongest people in the kingdom. He greeted Felix politely. Before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Pi grow naturally. Stating his name, and that he was the eldest son of House McLean. Looking closely at Felix, Logan noticed something strange. Even though the man was around 70 years old, he looked much younger. Logan figured he must be suppressing his aging, using his powerful aura. Felix confirmed that House McLean was in the southwest and asked why Logan had come all that way. Logan thought he didn't need to reveal the real reason immediately, and said he had recently opened a business in the capital, so he brought some products as a gift. He slid a small box across the table toward Felix and explained that it was an excellent medicine for men, with proven effectiveness among countless nobles. Felix studied the box and asked if that was really true, without giving any hint that he already knew something. Logan kept his head slightly bowed, feeling confused and unsure whether Felix was actually the thief from yesterday. He decided to push things further. He said that someone superhuman like Felix wouldn't need something so ordinary, so he had brought something more special. Instead, that finally made Felix show a small reaction. Logan was secretly happy, realizing that Felix's initial disinterest came from the fact that he hadn't felt any effect after using Emporic. It turned out that in the current version of Emporic, the poison in the monster meat was neutralized just enough for use as an aphrodisiac, but that mild poison had no effect on the body of a superhuman like Felix. So Logan had concentrated that poison again and again, creating a far more potent concentrate. He told Felix it was a limited edition version of Emporic, and that finally sparked the man's interest. In reality, it was simply 50 Emporic pills compressed into one. Logan guaranteed the effect, explaining that the excruciating pain alone could kill a normal human, but for an aura user, it was a completely different story. Logan told Felix that if the pill satisfied him, he would be glad to hear from him and would prepare another batch in whatever quantity Felix wanted, ensuring complete discretion. The next day, Felix looked radiant, clear proof that the pill had worked. He then told Logan he would grant him any favor within his power. Logan nearly exploded with happiness inside, but forced himself to stay calm, and said he didn't understand what Felix meant. Felix explained that an aura user is a master who controls both body and life energy, so he could be sure of the treatment's effectiveness. The medicine worked perfectly not just the first time, but over about 30 uses. The effect accumulated until he fully recovered. That heavy longing and pain in his chest were finally fading away. Felix looked at Logan and said he couldn't believe Logan had been so considerate as to bring him a gift without even mentioning his earlier blunder. He also commented that Logan's sword skills that day had been unbelievable for someone his age. Because of that, he was certain Logan was exactly the kind of person you'd expect to have such a miraculous medicine. Poor Felix, he'd been stuck in a dry spell for so long that he'd basically gone insane. He had admitted he might have spoken too soon, and revealed that he now saw the possibility of being cured of a chronic illness thanks to Logan's gift. So he wanted to repay him properly. He asked again what Logan desired. Logan stared down at the floor with a cold expression and replied that in that case, he wanted any book on swordsmanship. Felix searched his library and brought him a book, warning that training only by following what was written inside could hurt his body, but that it was still worth reading. After that, Logan thanked him and asked for one more favor to write a letter as proof that he had taken the book. Felix said that would be no problem at all. Logan thought that now he had what he needed and commented that it was a shame he was only taking one swordsmanship book when the Duke was willing to give him anything, but his real goal was different. Just as he finished that thought, Felix said he'd been thinking about it and that something didn't feel right. Logan asked what he meant and Felix replied that he would personally teach him a sword technique, which left Logan completely speechless. The kingdom's greatest swordsman was offering to train him. Felix continued, saying he understood Logan's desire to stay humble, but giving him just a low-level sword book wouldn't put his mind at ease. Logan thought that even though he already had the secrets of the divine sword, he'd be crazy to refuse when the strongest man in the kingdom was offering something like this. Ecstatic, he thanked Felix for the opportunity, thinking he had just hit the jackpot once again. In the training grounds, Felix and the young man stood facing each other. Felix remarked that, judging the talent of outstanding youths was one of an old man's simple pleasures, so he told Logan to focus because he wouldn't be holding back at all. Logan steadied his stance and prepared himself. Felix told him to draw his sword, but Logan found himself frozen in place, overwhelmed by the Master's aura. A massive pressure crashed down on him, making it impossible for him to even touch his weapon. This was the terrifying power of a high-level aura user. Logan wondered if all of them could do this, imagining how terrifying it would be if paralyzing the body was common among such people. If that were the case, every fight would turn into nothing more than a contest of whose aura was stronger. He quickly realized this wasn't just brute force but some kind of refined technique. Finally, he managed to draw his sword just a little. He thought he needed to use his force to sharpen his senses instead of reinforcing his body, and then analyze that strange energy pressing down on him. Every time he tried to move, Felix's force spread outward from its original point. Logan couldn't understand how something like that was even possible, but he knew he had to deal with it somehow. He figured that the moment Felix was about to disperse his force, he had to move half a step faster than that. With that thought, Logan assumed a proper fighting stance. His sword now fully drawn, Felix looked at him and calmly said he was talented. Logan was sweating heavily, barely managing to stay upright as Felix told him to pay close attention. Felix seemed to be gathering his aura at the tip of his blade, clearly preparing an attack. As Logan struggled against the crushing presence, fear locked his body in place. When he looked up, he finally understood what he was facing. Felix's blade of force. He stared straight ahead, knowing the attack was coming, but there was a serious problem. Felix's aura was simply too strong for him to handle. He felt as if the Duke's force was invading his body, scrambling his senses, while the energy around that red blade kept growing more intense. Desperation filled his mind as he wondered if there was anything he could even do. Then suddenly, he realized something. His own force was neutralizing the Duke's, turning inward. He knew he couldn't dodge the attack in time, but maybe there was another way. Logan summoned the force inside his body and molded it into a protective circle around himself. Seeing that, Felix was stunned, wondering if Logan was really planning to block his attack using force. Immediately after, the Master Swordsman shifted into an aggressive stance. His blade pulled behind his back and charged with energy, ready to strike Logan down. He stepped forward and leaped at the young man with a murderous glare. Logan braced himself in a defensive posture, his sword held in front of him and wrapped in his protective aura, while a shiver of fear ran down his spine. As expected, Felix's blow slammed into him head-on and sent him flying backward. Logan crashed into the wall and even his sword seemed to suffer damage. Felix, meanwhile, didn't even look winded. He stood there calmly, staring at Logan with a cold, unreadable gaze. Using his shatter sword as support, Logan tried to stand up, but his body was trembling. His blade was broken into pieces, and all he could think about was what had just happened. Felix turned toward him and asked, "Before we move ahead, please take a second to share on this video. Sharing helps this video reach friends who may also enjoy anime, gaming, travel, cricket, chess, career basics, or personal stories. Your support helps Amazing Abhi grow naturally." If he really thought he would teach him something Logan couldn't eventually figure out on his own. He then revealed that he had seen everything, and pointed out that without even realizing it, Logan had gone completely serious at the end. With a proud look on his face, Felix praised him, amazed that Logan had faced the attack head-on, thinking that some people were simply born to stand out. As Logan finally passed out, Felix commented that it would be entertaining to watch him grow even stronger. A little later, Felix's butler asked Logan if he was leaving already, adding that the Duke had invited him to stay until he fully recovered. Logan replied that it was fine, and that thanks to the potion Felix had given him, he felt completely okay. Hearing that, the butler said he would walk him to the door. Outside, he wished Logan a safe journey, and Logan thanked him. After that, Logan quickly walked away, vanishing from the butler's sight, leaving him wondering how Logan had disappeared so fast. Turning a corner, Logan kept moving, while limping slightly from the pain of Felix's attack. It hurt like hell, but he wasn't about to waste such a valuable potion on a minor injury. He couldn't believe the Duke had given him a superior grade potion, something practically impossible to find as if it were nothing. Logan thought that his own power had already evolved enough to heal internal wounds by itself, but the damage Felix had caused would be much harder to deal with. In the end, he looked at the potion and muttered that either way he had gained far more than he had lost. Then Logan took out a note Felix had given him with the coordinates for the mansion's communication channel. Felix had told him that if Logan ever had any problems, he could just get in touch. Logan felt genuinely happy, thinking about how Felix had actually come to view him favorably. To him, it felt like Felix was practically treating him like a disciple, and that relationship would definitely be useful in the future. Just as that thought crossed his mind, Philip suddenly appeared from behind, scaring Logan badly. Logan turned his head and asked what Philip was doing there, and Philip replied that he had been waiting at a distance for Logan to come out. The moment Logan showed up, Philip asked why he looked so pale. Worried, he practically shouted at him, asking if Logan had done or said something rude to anger the dude. Logan replied that it was the complete opposite, and that he had just had a small swordsmanship lesson with the noble. Suddenly, he coughed and blood sprayed from his mouth, terrifying Philip. Seeing that, Philip panicked and said he was going to prepare everything for them to flee, and would get the fastest horses available. Logan tried to explain that Philip was completely misunderstanding the situation, but Philip kept muttering and didn't listen at all. A week later, at Logan and Philip's shop, a notice on the door announced that Emporic was out of stock and asked customers to come back later. Inside, Logan appeared with a victorious expression and declared that their total profit from Emporic sales had reached an impressive 4.1 million gold coins. Impressed, Philip replied that if sales kept going at this pace, surpassing 4.5 million gold in a month wouldn't be difficult either. They exchanged confident looks and let out a cheer of joy that echoed outside the shop. But the celebration didn't last long. Logan, suddenly serious again, asked Philip if he was so happy that he didn't need a bonus this month. Philip instantly snapped back to reality and begged him not to ruin his daydreams. Then Logan commented that he had made sure the monster meat they bought at the market would be processed without any issues, and he praised Philip for doing a great job. Next, Philip suggested that Logan consider buying a house in the capital to reduce accommodation costs. But Logan dismissed the idea, explaining that they would only be in the capital for another year and a half, so it didn't make sense to invest that much. He told Philip to stay focused on Emporic for now, adding that they would eventually have to move anyway. When Philip asked what he meant by that, Logan simply said it was something he didn't need to worry about. Finally, Philip asked Logan to take better care of his health, saying he was shocked to see him coughing up blood earlier. Logan replied that that was exactly why he had locked himself in his room for an entire week. Hearing that, Philip asked if Logan had really been resting, since every time he went into the room, he saw Logan sitting at his desk, doing something. Once again, Logan cut him off, telling him it was none of his business. Philip complained that Logan kept way too many secrets, but Logan was secretly glad that even while grumbling, Philip didn't push that issue. If Rick had been there instead, he would have dug until he found out everything. Philip then asked if Logan was going home already, and Logan confirmed it, asking him to find a way to calm the customers until he could send more Emporic. On top of that, Logan said he had one more thing to tell him. He'd instructed Philip to send food rations worth 100,000 gold coins per month to both the Tesseran and M. Klein estates. Hearing that, Philip was stunned and asked if Logan planned to feed the entire region with that much food. Logan cut him off, saying that was enough muttering, and that they needed to do this for a whole year, so Philip should start looking for a supplier. Philip realized Logan was completely serious, and commented that he never imagined Logan valued his people so much, but that wasn't quite true. As he prepared to leave, Logan thought that it wasn't about valuing them. It was something he absolutely had to do. It would take at least a year to solve the food shortage in McLean. He knew the people's labor was a crucial part of his plan, so he couldn't let them starve. Logan got ready to leave and casually told Philip he had work to do, so he was heading out. Philip didn't even bother asking for details, already knowing it was just another one of Logan's secrets. Elsewhere, a group of poor people were huddled together on the cold floor of what looked like a warehouse, using whatever scraps of cloth they could find to keep themselves warm. One guy, his face bleeding, just stared down at the floor in silence, completely broken. Meanwhile, Logan was inside a magic shop, handing a piece of paper to a sorcerer. The wizard glanced at the list and asked if Logan seriously intended to track down all the people written there. He hesitated, explaining that with only names and a few traits, the task would mean searching the entire continent. Logan didn't even flinch and calmly asked if he could do the job or not, adding that he would pay very generously. The sorcerer looked at the paper again clearly unsure, then, after a short pause, reluctantly agreed. As Logan left, he thought that just as expected, it wouldn't be easy to find them. After all, even the names he had might be fake. Still, he had no other choice. He needed to gather every independent superhuman he could find, no matter the cost. These were the people who had reached that stage in his past life, but never joined any organization. Every single one of them would become a critical ally in the upcoming war against the Empire, especially one specific mercenary who had once fought on the Empire side. While walking, Logan suddenly stopped. He let out a sharp breath and realized he'd been rushing things way too much. With everything going smoothly in the capital, he was moving too fast. He looked up at the sky and reminded himself that he actually had plenty of time. He could afford to slow down, but that belief that he had plenty of time might not be true at all. In a dark room that looked like a dungeon, a man tried to calm down a furious elder chief. The old man was completely possessed by rage, shouting that someone was mistreating his disciples, and demanding to know if the man had other henchmen, even mentioning some tower master. The man explained that he was only there to deliver information, but the elder didn't care at all. His fury stayed uncontrollable. Then the elder demanded to know why his disciple had been summoned. This time, the man replied that the young man had been sent to the far southwest countryside, to the Emlon region, for a 6-month business trip. Hearing that, the elder slammed a heavy hand on the man's shoulder and declared that he wouldn't let the magic tower master get away with this. This time he'd insisted the matter would be settled once and for all. Next, the scene shifts to the massive and imposing Earth Magic Tower in the Kingdom of Grandia. Inside, a man approached a desk, where another man was fast asleep. He greeted him, and the sleepy attendant blinked and looked up. The moment he recognized the visitor, he stood up cheerfully and welcomed him. Curious about who this young man was, the employee silently wondered what Logan's deal was. At first, he'd assumed he was a noble, but seeing him now in a cheap suit made him start doubting that. The attendant figured there was no way he was there to meet a high-ranking mage, and hoped Logan would just buy some basic scrolls. Smiling politely, he listened as Logan asked for 150 scrolls of destruction magic, which instantly caught him off guard. Even so, he kept his face cold. Then Logan pulled out his Cooper bank account certificate and asked the attendant to take a look. As the man began counting the funds, his disbelief only grew. The total came to a ridiculous 4 million gold, leaving him completely stunned. He looked down, visibly shaken, then stammered and offered to personally escort Logan to the upper floor. Logan listened calmly. Destruction magic was a 4th circle area of effect spell, capable of bringing down stone walls. However, because of drawbacks like slow activation time and very obvious casting signs, it was rarely used in combat. Even so, Logan saw massive potential in it for construction, believing it could speed up development by a crazy amount. Logan soon found, before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Pi grow naturally. Himself speaking with an older man who asked if he really wanted to buy 150 scrolls. Logan replied that he absolutely did. The man, Radius Great, the master of the Earth Magic Tower, didn't hide his nervousness. Since it had been ages since they'd had such a wealthy client, Logan remembered how just minutes earlier, the master had come running the moment he heard Logan wanted 155 scrolls, which was a pretty strange reaction for someone of his status. It turned out Radius had been Tower Master for 5 generations, yet he only had 1.5 million gold to his name, showing just how bad the Tower's finances were. Logan immediately realized that this weakness worked in his favor, so he told Radius that his own house, McLean, was nothing more than a bunch of petty thieves from the southwest, and he understood if the master had never even heard of them. Hearing that, Radius apologized to Logan, admitting that his young apprentice had made a mistake and promising he would scold him severely. Logan waved it off, saying it wasn't necessary. The master replied that Logan was extremely generous. All the while, the guy at the counter was internally freaking out. The master, however, looked irritated, thinking he had almost lost such an easy catch like Logan. Even with Logan insisting, Radius fell into silent thought. In these peaceful times, earth magic was more useful for farming and construction. He couldn't understand which noble would spend so much money on expensive scrolls for something so trivial. Frustrated, He thought about the fools gossiping that magic tower had weakened since he became master. On top of that, it seemed he had burned through the tower's budget way too fast. After sizing things up, he decided it was lucky Logan looked like an easy target. He resolved to handle the young man carefully and squeeze as much money out of him as possible. With that in mind, Radius told Logan that, to be honest, there might be a problem fulfilling his request. Curious, Logan asked what the issue was. The master explained that making a 4th circle scroll required supervision by at least a 5th circle mage, and unfortunately, the tower was short on experienced staff. Logan didn't even look bothered. He just stared at Radius and bluntly asked what he planned to do about it. Radius was caught off guard. That wasn't the reaction he'd expected, but he kept going, explaining that the unit cost to produce each scroll was extremely high. Hearing that, Logan calmly stood up and said it was a shame nothing could be done. He headed toward the door, telling the master that his original plan was to buy 150 scrolls every single month. But if the tower couldn't handle that quantity, he'd take his business to the royal family's magic tower instead. Radius panicked. He jumped in front of Logan and blocked his path, desperately asking if Logan seriously planned to buy 150 scrolls every month. Logan confirmed it, adding that over the next 6 months, he'd need a total of 900 scrolls. The master looked like he just reached heaven, staring at Logan as if he were an angel sent by the gods. Logan then casually pointed out that if producing 150 scrolls at once was already hard for them, a 6-month order would be an even bigger nightmare. As Logan turned to leave again, Radius did something dramatic. He threw himself to the floor and grabbed Logan's boot, shouting that they would handle the order. Logan asked if he really thought that was possible. Radius replied that it was 100% feasible. While dusting off Logan's shoes with his robe, he continued, sucking each scroll cost 10,000 gold, meaning 150 scrolls would come to 1.5 myth gold. Radius's eyes were shining with greed as he quickly realized that with Logan's planned purchases, he could earn over 9 million gold in the next 6 months. After finishing his little performance, he stood up and proposed an alternative. He suggested that hiring mages might be the better option. Confused, Logan asked which mages he was talking about. Normally, mediocre mages were preferred for dirty work, so he couldn't understand why the master would offer to lend him mages, which would be even more expensive. Logan thought that with a 4th circle mage, he could match the output of 300 scrolls per month and asked if they had any 4th circle mages willing to work on a construction site. Radius clarified that there had been a misunderstanding. Not even he had the authority to casually command a 4th circle mage. Instead, he offered to send 2 to 9 N circle mages and 1 to 3 RD circle mages. He explained that these mages were disciples with a lot of teamwork experience. In exchange, he asked Logan to reduce the number of scrolls. Logan considered the offer carefully, thinking it might actually be a good deal. Sending a team of mages could be more efficient. Still, he hesitated, wondering what kind of people these construction-specialized mages would really be. Sometime later, a group of exhausted, ragged young men appeared in front of Logan. They looked like they had just crawled back from a war zone, and he was genuinely shocked by how bad their condition was. The warriors struggled to find the right words to say. Right at that moment, the tower master cut in and told the group they could return to their quarters. The men ran off immediately, visibly scared, leaving Logan standing there a bit lost. Annoyed, he turned to the master and commented that those guys looked like they were about to collapse. The master agreed, but assured him they were the youngest people with the most construction experience in the entire magic tower. Real experts in the field. Logan reflected on that and thought that despite their rough appearance, the mages did seem pretty capable, with one master at the 3rd circle and several experts among them. All in their 20s, they were clearly promising talents. Even with all that, Logan stayed suspicious. He didn't trust that the tower master would actually send his disciples out to the countryside. So he confronted him, saying that exchanging 2nd circle mages for the scrolls didn't sound like a fair deal at all. The master replied, calmly assuring him that a team of 10 mages would be more than sufficient. Hearing that, Logan once again flashed that familiar murderous smile. Still smiling, he started negotiating with the master. He proposed that 120 magic scrolls, plus the dispatch of 10 mages, would be done for a price of 1.2 million gold per month. The master tried to keep his composure, but he was visibly shaken by what he'd just heard. Logan thought it was almost a steal, considering how talented those mages were, and that even he wouldn't send ordinary mages out for that price. He was still amazed when he saw the master actually agreeing to the deal. The master then pulled out a contract and insisted that Logan sign it immediately. Logan looked down at the paper, wondering how anyone in their right mind could agree to those terms. And in the rush, the ink hadn't even dried properly yet. Logan felt like something was off. Suddenly the big elder, Chief Clayton, burst through the door behind him, with two disciples desperately trying to hold him back. The elder chief shouted at the master, saying he'd heard everything he was doing with the disciples, and that they were going to have a little chat right there and then. Clayton, a fifth circle mage, was absolutely furious and confronted the master, demanding to know if he was planning to send his disciple on yet another mission. The master replied that everything he did was for the good of the tower. Clayton shot back, asking why only his disciples were always assigned to the most difficult tasks, pointing out that the master wasn't sending just anyone, but the young people who had literally just returned from other missions. The master retorted that the young were capable of enduring hardship. Clayton accused him of mistreating the disciples ever since he himself had become an elder last year. The master dismissed the complaint, saying Clayton had lost his mind. As Logan watched the whole scene play out, he started to understand the power dynamics. Clayton reaching the fifth circle at such a young age clearly made him a threat to the Tower Master, who was taking out his frustrations on the younger disciples. Despite all the tension, Logan stayed calm, quietly satisfied that this internal conflict was playing straight into his hands. The Tower Master then turned to Clayton and coldly declared that if he wasn't willing to follow orders, he didn't care about their fate at all. He told Clayton and his disciples to leave right now if they wanted, and the elder asked if he was serious. Hearing that ultimatum, Clayton began to channel his magic, clearly preparing for a fight, even with a clash about to explode. The master stayed impassive and asked Clayton if he really wanted to go through with it. While Clayton was charging his magic, the ground around the two of them started shaking. One of the disciples realized how dangerous this was and shouted that they needed to stop those two. Clayton then yelled at the Tower Master to get ready. The master just stood there, watching Clayton take a fighting stance, and then, out of nowhere, Logan slammed his hand down on the table with force. Everyone's attention snapped to him. He looked completely unfazed by the chaos around him. Both of them were speechless at what Logan had just done, and the young disciples were also in disbelief. Logan calmly showed them the piece of paper he had just stamped. It was the contract he was supposed to sign with the Tower Master, now fully finalized. He then simply told the 10 people waiting in the room to follow him. After that, he addressed both Clayton and the Tower Master. He told them to sort their mess out themselves and warned that the contract would still be valid even if the Tower Master got replaced, so there would be no problem with the business either way. The Tower Master admitted how pathetic they both must have looked in front of a guest and told Logan he would send the scrolls as soon as they were ready, but Clayton cut him off, saying he wasn't finished talking to him yet. The master snapped back, asking if he was trying to force the official contract of the Earth Magic Tower right there, and scolded him, telling him to know his place. Clayton then shot back that if that was the case, then his decision was final. He would follow his disciples too. Both Logan and the Tower Master were completely dumbfounded by Clayton's attitude. The master exclaimed that Clayton had to be insane, and elder following his disciples to a construction site was unheard of. Logan immediately shouted that he never hired a fifth circle mage. Clayton replied that he didn't want to be paid separately, and that he just planned to cooperate to help his disciples and finish the job faster. Hearing that, Logan bowed respectfully before the elder and promised to serve him with full devotion. Clayton then simply asked Logan to delay his disciples' departure by 1 day so they could recover before heading out again. Logan agreed to the request and told the Tower Master to meet him tomorrow at noon at the West Gate. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Amazing Apai. Subscribing makes sure you do not miss the next video, and it gives me motivation to keep improving the quality of every upload. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.